Tanner, say it with me. Ready? Cancun on 3. 1, 2, 3. Cancun. We are in the off season for our team.
No, wait. I got a better one. 1, 2, 3. Send the Celtics to Russia.
Wait, to Russia or Ukraine? Which side of the fence are we falling on?
Send them to Russia. Ukraine.
Just send them right in the war zone.
Ukraine has a little bit of a democracy over there. Send them to Russia. Get them out of the country right now. They need a long vacation. They need to go think about what they did. So when they come back next year in a game 7, they could think, hey, we could be in Russia right now fighting in a war.
I thought you always told me that Boston Beantown, it was Titletown. It was, you wouldn't understand because you never pulled yourself up by the bootstraps. Now you're telling me they need a mental readjustment?
No, Boston's a gritty city. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Like, you walk through Boston, like it's pretty gritty. Like, it can be gritty. A lot, it's getting a little more less gritty, I would say. But for the most part, the sports side is gritty. They need to be grittier. They need to figure out how to be gritty. Like Jason Tatum last night, walking in with the Kevin Garnett jacket on. And then you pull that, like, Grant, he was hurt. The whole team. I'm just talking about the whole team mentality. You pull that, really? You need to go to Russia. This whole team needs to go to Russia.
What happened, Tanner? What happened, Celtics?
Jaylen Brown doesn't know how to dribble a basketball. We'll talk about this in a minute. We will talk about I don't remember
the whole show, Tanner. Can we stay on schedule here?
Yeah, okay. Follow, subscribe, share, do it all. Like this if you want to send the Celtics to Russia as well. And let's get into it, Grant. Like, I'm ready. I'm just ready to dive into it. You plug what you want to plug, and let's get into it.
No, listen, Tanner, you take the road. I'll intro it, and I'll just tee you up, and you run with it. Miami Heat beat the Boston Celtics 103-84 in Game 7. We know the Heat were up 3-0 in this series. No team in NBA history had ever lost a series after taking a 3-0 lead. The Celtics became the 4th team to ever force a Game 7, being down 0-3, but ultimately it was for nothing. They lose on their home court. And now, Tanner, why don't you get right back into where you started this show off?
All right. So I am a massive Boston sports fan, massive Celtics fan. And I'm joking about sending to Russia. Like, honestly, here's the thing. I can live with them not showing up. No, I can't live with them not showing up. I can live with the Boston Celtics playing good basketball last night and getting beat. Because honestly, the Miami Heat were like, were they 50% from the 3-point line throughout the majority of the game? They were really good. They shot really well. Caleb Martin was sensational. Jimmy Butler delivered when he needed to. I can live with you laying it on the line and getting beat. I can't live with the effort that they gave last night. Turnover, pull up 3, brick. Pull up 3, brick, not setting up your offense. Joe Mazzulla thinking he's Bill Belichick in every freaking interview that he does, saying he's got to play better. Like, this team blew it in every way whatsoever. They blew it. They should have won at least one game in games 1 and 2. They probably should have won both. They went on the road. They had it. They had a chance to make history, and they just blew it. So, yeah, send them to Russia, honestly, because the effort that they gave last night was embarrassing. It was despicable. Like, Peyton Pritchard and Sam Hauser and whoever the guy with the freaking knee braces was on the court at the end of the game. Like, that's embarrassing. Yeah, he made it 3 at least. He was giving an effort. I'll give him that. They shouldn't be on the floor in Game 7 of a Eastern Conference Finals game. It just shouldn't happen.
No, it should not. And I'm with you on pretty much everything you said. I'm a little upset you actually stole my thunder because I wanted to talk about Mazzulla's in-game interviews. I live tweeted during the game, the emergency Sam Hauser panic button has been pressed. That's how desperate Joe Mazzulla was getting. But I just do want to start with Jason Tatum. Look, Tanner, I know obviously you played football. You're a D1 offensive lineman. Did you ever have an ankle injury during a game?
Yeah, it's hard. I don't want to blame Jason Tatum. It's hard.
No, what I was going to say too is because my ankle, of all the injuries I had, ankle was the most recurring. So I've broken my ankle, I've sprained my ankle, and there can be different degrees. You can tweak it and then you can be fine. And then the next day it's going to balloon up on you, but you have adrenaline to get through the rest of that day. Or it can be an instantly within 15 seconds, I basically have a blown tire. I can't use this leg for the rest of the day. Tatum did play 42 minutes. So he tried to grit it out. I can't fault him. Even though he wasn't effective, he was still trying to put the moves on people. He had 11 rebounds, so he was still fighting in the paint. Like, I do want to give Tatum credit, but I think what went wrong is the Celtics needed Tatum for his offense in a Game 7. He's a top 5 Game 7 points per game scorer in NBA history. In the Philadelphia series, when they were about to be eliminated in 6, it was him who had the crazy fourth quarter. And then, of course, the greatest Game 7 in NBA history. 51 points in the elimination game. So you needed Tatum to be at his best offensively, and he just simply couldn't be. So that's where it all sort of switches over to Jaylen Brown, who I know you're also not happy with. Because Jaylen Brown, this situation, look, yes, you're not the number one star on your team, but you're somebody who has seemingly flirted with the idea of being traded out of Boston, and presumably, if you got your own team, you would be the number one guy there. You're up for the Supermax. You're probably going to get it. You're second team All-NBA, average 27 points a game. This is a game, simply put, where you have to step up. And look around at the rest of these playoffs. We have seen second stars stepping up. Anthony Davis, although he was disappointing in a lot of games, did have 40 points in game one against the Nuggets, and he was the best defender in the playoffs. Jamal Murray averaged 32 points on 50, 40, 90 in the conference finals. Only player in league history to do that. For the Miami Heat, Caleb Martin, an undrafted free agent, had games. He closed out this series with 21 and 15 and then 26 and 10. All these second stars were stepping up, and Jaylen Brown, when the pressure was on, money's at the center of the table, he looked arguably at his worst. And the worst part about him, of course, was his 8 turnovers. And I don't know if you saw this clip, Tanner. It was going around on social media right after the game. It was Draymond Green doing a conversation with JJ Redick on his podcast after the Warriors won the last finals. And JJ Redick basically said, we can talk about defensive coverages or schemes or whatever, but strip that away. I want you to tell me the moment in which the finals changed. Because if you remember, Boston was up 2-1, and then the Warriors won 3 straight games. Draymond Green said, in game 4, I figured out nobody on their team could go left. So we were just shading them left the entire game, and we ended up winning, and we knew that we had won the series because we had found it. Draymond's famous for talking about this. He says there are moments where he knows that he's beaten an opponent, and for him, it was when they found out they couldn't go left. All 8 of Jaylen Brown's turnovers were him going left last night. He has the same problem. He simply can't use his left hand. And for a guy who's second team All-NBA, it's just not good enough.
Let's go back to Jason Tatum real quick before we get into Jaylen Brown, because I can rip both these guys. I know Jason Tatum had the ankle problem last night, but I'm paying Jason Tatum to score in the fourth quarter, and I'm paying Jason Tatum to close out games. And throughout the entire series, he was not good from the three-point line. Yes, he had his moments, but overall, Jason Tatum in the postseason was Mr. Inconsistent, and that's not what Jason Tatum's getting paid to do. He was more inconsistent than he was consistent, and that's the biggest issue right there. So we can talk about him being a hero last night and playing on one leg. I don't care. It shouldn't even got to that point. We shouldn't have been in the game 7. He shouldn't have rolled his ankle. Then we go to Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown does not know how to dribble a basketball. Like, you talk about going to his left. I don't remember when Jaylen Brown was good, because there was no point in the playoffs where he was an authority scoring the basketball. All he did was turn the ball over. All he did was pull up and take brick 3-pointers. Like, there's times too throughout this entire season and throughout the playoffs, really, that the Celtics have guys, you know what they're going to do. They are literally going to just hang at the 3-point line, dribble the basketball, wait for the clock to go down, and shoot a 3-pointer. They did it so many times last night, and I get it when you're hot. Jason Tatum can afford to do that when he's hot. Jaylen Brown, the same thing. But neither of them were making those shots, and they had no sort of offense. They had no offensive consistency. They had no game plan going up and down the court. So, yeah, Jaylen Brown sucks. Jason Tatum, honestly, he needed to be better throughout the entire series, so I give him credit for playing last night, but we shouldn't even been in this spot.
Yeah, I think that's a fair criticism. And it's so hard with Tatum because he is clutch. We had this conversation. He might not be the clutchest player in league history, but he is clutch. He does have that dog in him, even if he lets it out the kennel sometimes. And his box scores are normally pretty consistent. But it's what we always come back to. It's the quarter-to-quarter stuff. He might just disappear so often. Was it 3 games or 4 games it took him to finally get a field goal in the fourth quarter in this series? He was still averaging 30, but he just simply was not making baskets in the fourth quarter. And like you said, look, we can say the Heat outplayed Boston because they did. They were the rightful winners of this series. But as the number 1-2 seed, who was the number 1 seed for a while, most people said it was the best team in basketball. Vegas said they were the championship favorites. You just can't go down 3-0 when you have home court advantage. And then also, Game 7, Tanner, I don't know what Game 7s are about to you, but to me, they're about 3 things. They're about stars, coaching, and culture. I think that's what Game 7 boils down to. So let's break all of those down. The Game 7 stars. Jason Tatum, injured within 30 seconds. You can say that he needed to be better early in the series. Let's only talk about Game 7. I simply refuse to judge him. I know what it's like. Maybe I'm speaking a little personally because, like I said, my ankle has plagued me in the past, so I'm hypersensitive to it. But I feel like you could see it on Tatum's face. He was actually scared to jump. He just didn't. He couldn't use that foot. So let's look at the other side. Bam Adebayo. He was actually pretty horrendous on offense too. So at least those canceled out each other. Now Bam was sensational on defense. It was out of this world performance, but at least he wasn't scoring the ball. So now it comes down to Jaylen Brown going mano a mano with Jimmy Butler. Well, that matchup wasn't even close. Jaylen had 19 points. 2 of them were on a garbage dunk when he should have been out of the game. Jimmy Butler had 28, 7, 6, and he also had 3 steals. Okay, what about the culture? Heat culture is literally named heat culture. Everybody knows what it means. You're hard-nosed, you're gritty, you're resilient. When your back's against the wall, you fight back. Boston does that in spots, but their actual culture is being inconsistent. You have no clue what's coming game to game with them. What about the coaching battle? Joe Mazzulla, probably the worst coach in the playoffs, versus Eric Spoelstra, probably the best coach in the playoffs. Going into this game, I was on the Heat money line. I was on it heavy. I picked the Heat to win the series, as you and the listeners of the show know. And I didn't think that was going to change in Game 7. The only thing that made me nervous was a Jason Tatum 40 or 50-point night. And because we didn't get that, in my mind, it was really no surprise the Celtics lost.
Yeah, the Celtics, again, they could have played their best possible basketball game, and they probably still lose last night with how well the Miami Heat played. So I don't want to take anything away from the Heat. And throughout the entire series, the Heat made shots when they needed to. Caleb Martin was sensational, right? Jimmy Butler stepped up at times. He was making his threes last night. But the biggest issue is just the effort that the Celtics put forward last night. They had no offensive rhythm. They did not play well on defense. They were not coached well. Jaylen Brown turned the ball over. Derek White, they were running, like, I love Derek White and he was hot in the series, but they were running their offense through Derek White. Like, that should not be the case.
It was Derek White versus Caleb Martin one-on-one in the third quarter.
Yeah, it just shouldn't be the case. Like, Derek White should not be the guy we run our offense through. And I love Derek White, and he is the hero of this series, and we're not in a Game 7 without him. But it was the effort that the entire team put forward. And then Grant Williams, I mean, he needs to go. Like, we got to get rid of Grant Williams. They got to clean house. You got to send Jaylen Brown out. Like, I'm good sending Jaylen Brown away. It's not just because of this. Like, this team's not going to win together. Like, they're not going to put it all together. They need a fresh start. And I think you need to get rid of Jaylen Brown after just what he has done historically in crunch time.